Welcome to Visibility Unlimited. I'm Leslie Short, your host and owner of the Cavu Group. We work with companies and organizations to expand beyond their current culture. Visibility Unlimited discusses topics focusing on diversity, inclusion, leadership, culture, and current events. Look out for my book, Expand Beyond Your Current Culture, out January 2021. Enjoy this episode and remember to subscribe to stay updated on future podcasts. We're doing a mental health and wellness check-in. Do you feel obligated to tell your employee about your mental well-being if you're working from home? Is there a racial divide with mental health and work? Mental health in the workplace. I hope you enjoy this very informative conversation.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us here today, December 2nd, for webinar number 25, Mental Health and Wellness Check-In. Today we'll be discussing, what do you expect from your job in regards to mental health? Do you feel obligated to tell your work about your mental illness now that you're working from home? Is there a racial divide with care of mental illness and work? Is there a stigma regarding mental illness in the Black and Brown community? Is mental health and wellness the same thing? And do you use your mental health days? Are you offered mental health days? Again, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Michael Lewis. I am the community curator at at the Village Collective, and we've been doing these webinars for all since the pandemic started. So again, welcome again. And with that being said, I will hand over the introduction to Leslie Short.
Hi, everyone. If you're new to joining, I'm Leslie Short. I'm the owner of the Cavu Group. So I work with organizations and corporations to expand beyond their current culture. So I discuss anything that's under the diversity and inclusion lens, company culture, and leadership. And this conversation has come from, well, number one, we're in a pandemic, so mental health and wellness is top of, I think, everyone's list, whether you dealt with it before the pandemic or not. And then as I'm working with companies looking at handbooks, wellness and mental health keeps coming up. And so with that said, I was like, this is a conversation we need to take to the community and really see what they want and how they're dealing with it. So now that we are at home and working from home, the majority of us still, does your job allow you to take mental health days? Do you feel that you need to tell them? And if you're new joining, this is not me talking to you. This is all of us having a conversation. So you can jump in at any time. All we ask is that you mute yourself when you're finished, because this is also being recorded for the Visibility Unlimited podcast. So this is an interactive jump-in conversation. So, is mental health and wellness the same thing? Because I see some handbooks that's writing both in. And the question I asked today is, well, is it the same? Or do they get wellness days or do they get mental health days? Do they get both? Is wellness, you're bringing in a yoga instructor, even if it's virtual? Because, at one point that was the big thing. And I was happy all my yoga friends were getting work, but they were calling it mental health, which is, of course, wellness is part of your mental health, but there's a difference. And so wanted to understand how other people are feeling, what jobs are offering. Is mental health and wellness even part of your handbook? Because that is something that I am really pushing to have written in and to guarantee a certain amount of days. And then my question was, for Black and Brown folks, is there a difference of how you have to handle your mental health and or wellness within the workplace? I already know that from the community standpoint, Black and Brown communities really have just begun to speak about mental health, let alone wellness. And I will always remember one of the preachers saying from the pulpit finally, you need to get a checkup from the neck up. you know, and that was because people in the community is just like, I don't need that. That's not for me. One, I guess because it wasn't affordable. And if you don't have the insurance to cover a psychiatrist or a therapist, that becomes an issue. So let's have this conversation on mental health and disparities or mental health in work. Does anyone have it written in their handbook that's on now? Has anyone even read their handbook or know what their handbook says? Actually, maybe I should start there. How many people actually know? So you've read it? Is it written in there? I call you out. This is for all family, Oscar.
No, it is written in the handbook. They included it more this year than they have in the past because everything that's going on. So we do have days. You don't have to tell them when you're taking them. You can. You don't have to disclose it because we actually do it. We go log on online and we go through HR Connects and we put it in. So if it says personal and they ask you for a reason, you can just type in personal and you don't have to tell them exactly what it is. But I guess if you just write that, they figure out it's a mental health day.
So then the question is, do they take your personal days away or do they give you extra mental health days? I'm fighting to keep both.
They're giving us extra this year, believe it or not, which is good.
That's a great thing.
Yeah.
And so it's written as personal, but it doesn't say mental health or wellness?
It says it, but when you put it in, it just says personal and you just write in personal. Yep.
Okay. That's good. Now, if there are, I see that there are brown or black folks on the call, do you feel that you are treated the same when you take a mental health day or wellness day, unless you can write it under personal? I know everybody here actually works for themselves, so I see the faces that my black and brown folks on their own jobs, and they're like, yeah, I just take the day off. You know? Okay.
Well, if I do, I just put in for it and that's it. They don't ask me anything, they don't tell me anything, so I just put it in. Which they're pretty good with that, which is good.
That's great. So then working from home, as like I said, the majority of us are, and you want to, maybe something has triggered since you've been home. Do you feel obligated to tell your employee that you're having some mental issues and that you need time? Anyone?
Oh, hi.
Hey, Jen.
I will just jump in and say that I work for a large corporation and we have 10 sick days that we can take. And then at the start of the pandemic, they offered 5 of those days as personal days. So they changed their policy. And there were some things going on early in the pandemic with my family that I felt I had to say, this is overwhelming and I need to take, a personal day or two, which was completely fine. I think I also just wanted to throw out that there is a massive disconnect in what the leadership tells us, like that we should be prioritizing our health and well-being and what is actually in practice happening. I feel like we have been way more overworked than we should be through this time. And so on a team level, it's like the message is not following through.
Well, it's interesting as you say that, because part of my conversation even today, I said, that's great that executives are saying to everyone, your wellness is important. Take your days, take your days. And I said, but I need to take it with you all 10 steps further. What are the managers? What are their responses? Because that's who you have to report into. We need to train the managers that they don't have the right to ask. Now, if somebody's taking 20 mental health days, then that's a different conversation that needs to be had, but that they shouldn't be the ones to say no to someone. And being clear that I believe so many people are overworked at this time. The dingle over the head of, well, we need to get it done. And so I guess, how do you feel the saying, we need to get it done, but I need to get it done the right way? or I need to get it done the best way for me to be settled for the job. You know, it's just that, think about it, before the pandemic, we had the wellness days, right? Or you had personal days or your sick days. Now the conversation is really about mental health and wellness. Is mental health and wellness the same thing? Anyone? And I'm not a doctor. I just want to throw that out there. I am trained as a mental health aide. That means I get called on some service calls with the police department, or I know if something's happening on the subway and something happens mental. I know when people are having episodes. That's all I have. I just want to disclaim that now. Yerlin, I saw you turn your camera on. Did you have something? Nice to see you, by the way. So yeah, so is mental health and wellness the same? Should it be treated the same?
I would say there's overlap. Okay, I'll just jump in. But there's overlap for sure. I feel like my mental health is more like I feel more stable when I am taking care of myself through wellness, through exercise, and the things, I consider to be wellness, eating well and getting acupuncture. Right. That is when, it's like one feeds into the other. But I would not say they are the same thing.
Right. So that goes to, I need a wellness day. I just need to pull it together. I need a mental health day. It's a different type of pull together. And that may not be a day. This pandemic did not treat a lot of people well in regards to the adjustment, let alone everything else that was happening. The racial justice injustice that we saw happening did not treat a lot of people well. And that's why I brought up the racial issue with mental health, because I feel that most Black and brown people could not say in the midst of it all, I need to take a day. I need to take a couple days. This hit me differently than it may have hit you, though it hit us all, not all of us, but it hit many. And what the heck is happening? And so part of what I felt my responsibility is and was, and to this day, of when I was speaking with companies, when I was the town hall speaker, when I'm working D&I, to honestly say, your Black and brown folks are not okay. They are showing up, but they're not okay. And it's not their responsibility to have to explain to you why they're not okay. So since they won't say it to you 9 out of 10, I'm here to say it for them. This has been a different type of kick in the gut. On top of pandemic, on top of blah, on top of this, families being home. So is there a difference on how cultures handle mental illness? Because that does play a part to how it happens at work.
I think it does, because some people were taught not to talk about it and just hide it and suppress it, which is actually not healthy at all. Mm-hmm. And some people were, like they tell you, let it out, speak, find somebody, talk to anybody. But it's kind of difficult when you feel that you're going to be stereotyped if you say, I'm going through this or I feel this. So it's like a double-edged sword. You don't know, should I say something? Should I be quiet? Do I get the help, or do I just, figure it out? So you're kind of stuck.
Right. Is there anyone on that does HR? I was trying to get some HR people on, because I know that's also the fear that, this is going to be written up. Now I'm the trouble person because I need to take some mental days off and I'm not going to get promoted, or, depending on where you work, all of that starts to play into it. And you're right. Most people are just scared to say anything. And at what point do you sacrifice yourself to show up every day? And how well do you work in that situation when you show up every day? I remember a story, and I knew this person has some issues every now and then, right? But I remember him coming at me in the elevator over an ad. And he had his umbrella and he's shaking his umbrella and he's going, "You rejected my ad." And I was like, "Your ad wasn't the one I told you to do," and I'm going, but I saw, and this was before I was officially trained as a mentor, I saw something click in his eyes. And I said, "I don't think you want to have this conversation with me at this moment." And we're in the elevator, and it's just the two of us. And I remember riding up, and he kept going. I was like, "This is not the moment. Let's not do it." And I kept, I pulled myself back, and I got off the elevator and I went straight in, and I was an executive. I went straight into the offices and I went, "Get him out of here now. He needs to be gone. He needs a break. Be happy it happened to me." I diffused it. But if he had lifted that umbrella to someone else in the elevator, screaming about an ad, that could be so many other kind of lawsuit, whatever that is, that could have gone so many different ways. And luckily, this company looked at me and said, "What do we do?" I said, "Well, I know we're not firing him, so I'm going to hold on to that. But he needs help, and he needs to take an extended 2-week vacation. And I think you need to find and maybe help where he has to go or do something, but he does not need to be in this office at this moment." And they listened, and he was given 2 weeks at a nice resort to get it together. And that company was very much that way. But how often does that happen? And how often are you believed when you go into a HR office and say, "I think someone," because you don't want to tell on somebody either, right? That's not your business to go, somebody's off. But when someone comes at you, most people are going to say, "Get them out, get them out, get them out." And the company's like, "Oh, they're fired, or we're going to do this." I was happy that they were like, "Okay, 2 weeks." He needed more than 2 weeks. I'm going to call it out what it is. But, that was like, at least we did what we could do with him. Any thoughts, any situations that you've been in or seen, or any policies that are truly working?
Hey, Les, I wanted to share a story that one of my colleagues told me. She works at a law firm, and they, of course, have a lot of mental health, policies and procedures written into their manual. Of course, as law firms, they're going to be extremely protected, language-wise.
Mm-hmm.
One of her colleagues retired, and within 2 weeks, he had committed suicide. And everybody was caught off guard because nobody saw the signs. And it was like, wow, this is really serious. And he was Hispanic. So let me say that too, because I think that's important, that like the conversation goes for brown and black folks who don't really seek mental health help. And because of his suicide, the law firm has taken a different approach and now are really seriously looking at how they can support their employees, because I'm sure, like, for anyone who's in a high pressure job, that just trying to keep your job is, with everything that's going on, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Definitely.
And then the jobs, like you said, they're demanding so much more from people because they're working from home. It's like a lot of bosses have been given permission to, like, overwork their employees. And I don't think the discussion has been made as to what working from home really is, and how to make it productive and worker friendly. So,
And
and I
so,
think that's tying into the mental health challenge also.
absolutely. So part of my conversations when I work with companies is that, like, at what point, what's the list of you can do? You have the right not to answer an email after a certain time. You have a right to take your mental days. You have a right. And I'm like, let's write this list. And let's do it as a nice reminder, one for managers, okay, that they can't tell the employees that they're demanding all of this. And two, for employees to understand, again, I hate to say their rights, but their rights of what they can do without being reprimanded, without having anything written up, just being able to survive, because the lack of thought of I'm in my house, I'm blessed. I am in my house. If I trip over something, it's because I left it there. It's not that I'm tripping over another person, little people, animal, like, and everybody trying to work. You know, everyone has 15 titles now and they haven't left the kitchen. So that it is playing on 9 months in. If there was mental issues before or things that you kept from your employees because you could manage it, now you're in, the pressure's on, you're happy, and I hate this, to still have your job, right? And that it is clear, makes the money, makes it into your account, that you're just trying to keep moving. And there has to be limits, your personal limits, and there has to be limits within an office. And that's the thing that I've been not surprised by, but surprised by, that no one has stepped up and said, okay, we need to rework this. Here's your can do, here's your options, here's, you don't need to answer someone at 9 o'clock at night. I last night happened to pick up my phone at probably 8:45 and 3 emails from a client from something that I had already discussed at 5 o'clock that was being questioned through the chain. And I had given them all those answers. But for backup is the reason I answered her, because I knew she was going to be freaked out until she, like, and I did it because I wanted to save the, the young woman, you know? And then this morning I said to her, how did it work out? And she's like, exactly how you said to do it. I said, oh, at 5? Okay. You know? And she was just like, I didn't want to bother you, and I'm sorry. I said, I responded. I let her know I responded because I didn't want to put you in a situation to not have to respond back to the CEO. But a normal agency would not be answering you at this time for something we went over at 5 o'clock, and did that. So I also find some of us in the position of trying to save people and their mental health and their wellness through this process. When this started, I said, here are the things I think every job should have. And you can agree or disagree or add some, or mental health, someone that's a mental health aide to be in every office. I also thought we were going back sooner than what we were. So in the boxes, someone that's handling diversity, inclusion, and equity, not in-house, out. And someone that is a conflict coach or mediator. Because there's so much happening that needs to be negotiated, conversated, and having a third party there having these conversations, I felt would be important as people, one, either we go back into the office or we all stay in these boxes. There has to be an outlet for people. And I've noticed when I do one-on-one conversations instead of group conversations sometimes, all of a sudden tears are coming. And it's been men and women. And it's just like, I can't say this to anyone, but you're sworn under confidentiality, so I can tell you. But here's the part you go back and tell them. And so it's become the voice of the voiceless when everyone has a voice. You know, The article today from Washington Post, and I'm sorry, I let you come, was how men are forming different types of bonds with their male friends. Because one, you don't have the bars, can't go grab a drink at the bar, you can't go grab something to eat at a bar. So you don't really have a basketball court. So you're either on a tennis court or a golf course, or you're like, yo, meet me at the park and let's just do a circle. And it's, it is forming better relationships. When I look at that, I'm like, oh, I love this. One, mental health, because let's be honest, men are just under just as much pressure as women are, because it's the unknown, right? Then everybody's in the house with kids and wife, and as much as we love our partners, as much as we love everybody, we don't love everybody after 9 months so much. We love them, we don't like them so much. And then I'm going, if this is happening and men are taking the time, that we're not going to call it mental health or wellness, but bonding, that's going to open up better doors and conversation and communication inside of the office. I think the attitude will shift. I could be Pollyanna on that for the moment, but that's what I'm hoping will come out of this. Jeff, did you want to say something, or did Michael want to say something?
I do, whenever you have a minute.
Yeah, well, go ahead, Michael, and then I'll go after you.
I say thank you, Alex, then Jeff.
Me first?
Yes.
Oh, you're going to go alphabetically, or what? You know, I just thinking through the mental health, that the stigma of copying to that and framing mental health wellness in any way that you want. Pre-COVID was always a touchy subject, as I think everybody has said, right? You don't want to admit it, or you don't, people kind of give you the funny eye if you need a day off just to get yourself together. You don't want to call it a mental whatever. So you could see that struggle taking place across corporations, businesses, whatever, for the last 3, 4, 5 years, probably more intensely than prior to that. But, you know, I can't think of a situation except for maybe the military that ever plans for a contingency plan for a mass event. So, you know, most of these manuals and labor practices and what's acceptable, they're written for the exception rather than the rule. So one person gets sick, or one person has the flu, or one person needs to get out of the office or take some health, wellness, mental, whatever, right? But nobody ever came up with a rule that everybody gets the flu at the same time. And so COVID's like that, like it just, everything happened at one time. So there's no rules for that. There's no saying you have more flu than the next person, or you don't have any symptoms and the other person does, or however that works out. And then, you know, you layer on the fact that we're all in disparate locations. So to the example before with the lawyer that ended up taking his life, you know, imagine trying to determine, and you couldn't see the signals in an in-office situation. Imagine trying to determine the signals in an off-site situation where you're basically seeing this person or hearing this person via Zoom calls or phone calls, emails. So that is a huge challenge, and I would imagine, but I specifically remember you calling it out, calling those, you know, we need a mental health coach, a D&I person, a third, a outsourced person, right? Or company. I really remember you doing that. And then I think the last part of the point that I wanted to make is this has all come in waves. I think there was that initial inertia. Okay, let's bunker down. Let's figure out how to do all of this stuff. Then a little easing off, like this is going to go away, so we can maybe take our foot off the gas. And then here we are again with an increase in cases again. And we still haven't, we haven't figured out best practices for this. And I personally doubt that even once, you know, the COVID situation has gone past, we'll have learned a lot and maybe put in some contingency plans for the next time. But it's kind of learning as you're running on the treadmill, except it just keeps getting faster and faster every time you kind of get to the to the BPMs that you thought you were going to be good enough, right? And then you got to increase it. So that's all. It was just a comment, not a question.
No, absolutely. And that's why I'm pushing to get some of the stuff in handbooks now, because we know this is going to be more. Like, handbooks are not going to be every 2 or 5 years like they used to be. We're just not in that stage. We're going to need to keep up with the times of what's happening. Go ahead, Jeff.
I think it's kind of interesting the fact that a lot of people no longer have a place to escape, i.e., their job or their school, and even their church, because the churches are closed. So a lot of the places and the people that you could associate with to help you have those conversations that maybe you can't have with your partner, have those doors have been shut and closed. So the whole idea of people being able to release and talk about stuff is gone. And in my mind, I think the business community is really evaluating cost savings that they're seeing by having people work from home. And I think it's a really I think it's a fallacy for people to think that we're going back, because I don't think the business community is looking at doing business the same way. I think they're looking at the bottom line. I think they're looking at ways to cut costs and to increase productivity, and they know that they basically have their workers by their cojones. And so it's going to be a different workplace. And we really do need people that can help,
No,
because people are not dealing with the brain. We're not
no,
dealing with our emotions. We're not.
absolutely. The workplace is never going to be the same. Like, whether we all went back tomorrow, it's not going to be the same. And mental health will need to be part of it. There's the social justice, racial justice, all of these conversations that wasn't happening
Hmm.
even 8 months ago will need to happen. And you made a great point about people don't have somewhere to go to release or to speak to their buddy or their work buddy or that. But guess what? That's also part of their mental health sitting at home, because that going out to work and being the VP or going to church and being the usher is part of their identity.
Yeah.
And their identity, pieces of that, has been taken away because
Yeah.
your partner does not care you're the VP. There is trash to be moved. There are children to be changed. And there's food to be found. I'm just going to say found. I haven't cooked at this point. So it really is that point of understanding that we need to look at the workplace differently. And yes, you may be able to cut dollars over here, but you're really going to have to take care of your employees over here. And that means if it is mental health days, you're going to need to bring in mental health professionals to have conversations or to have an outlet. Or what I said to one company, I think there should be hours. So I have, for one company, I have certain hours during the week that people are allowed to reach out to me as a conflict coach. And it gives them that opportunity to not, for me to understand the dynamics of their office, but I'm not invested in what Johnny said or Mary said. Or I'm trying to help them get from, if you're frustrated about this, how do you move forward in the process so that you keep your mental health going? And as we're, come on, Jen.
Well, I was just going to say, I love the suggestion of having a conflict mediator that is not HR, because as someone reminded me earlier in the year when a big conflict came up, HR works for the company. And, you bring up this situation, it's not, you don't have an advocate, is really what it comes down to. And, I have a teammate right now who is a woman of color who's experiencing physical symptoms from being overworked. Pain in her, arm so she's really doing the work of 2, if not 3 people. And no one's advocating. She can raise this with her manager, which she has multiple times and time again and taken time, but it's not getting resolved. And we're in a pandemic and we have a hiring freeze. So we're not bringing in help. And, I just wanted to point out that the idea of having a third party conflict resolution mediator is great, so needed.
And what I give the CEO credit for that. And it's funny because I have an hour just with that person a week. And that's part of what we do as part of the work of DEI and everything. But the employees have 2 days a week that they can go in on a calendar and book time with me. And there was a time when it was nonstop. And I was like, okay, because then I get to go back and go, there's a root of an issue here that we really need to address. And we have to address it now. Then management changed. And I heard from no one for a while. And I was like, I'm going to leave it alone for a moment because clearly they're adjusting and something is working. And then a couple weeks ago, I had a couple pings and I said, well, how are things? And they're like, it's much better. I just needed to work through this with you. And I could see the light in this girl's face from when we started the pandemic, which I was quite concerned with her being at home. She wasn't from this country. And she's like, am I going to lose my job? What is going on? I don't know. I'm here in this tiny apartment by myself. It took a toll. And she honestly said, if I didn't have this outlet, I don't know what I would have done. And so you have to be able to have sometimes more than, and I'm not knocking anyone for HR at all whatsoever, but HR has the things that they're doing. And even with the companies I'm working on, when we're writing it in the handbook, I'm like, who are the other 2 people of senior levels that they allowed to go to? Because I don't want to just say, go to your director and go to HR. Because I, in my interviews, found out that's not working. No one wants to go to either one. So there needs to be another level or another layer of options that people can speak to that they're comfortable enough with to say something's not right. And until we address this and be honest about it, it's not going to work. I remember when there were people that were leaving work for AA meetings. And I remember a guy that was just like, came to me at one of the companies I was overseeing. And he was just like, you're going to fire me. And I was like, well, I don't really hire or fire. He's like, yeah, you do. But you're going to fire me because my AA meeting has changed. And I was like, stop. When is it? He's like, it's at 12. So it's in the middle of the day. I said, where is it? I said, is it, I don't need the address. Is it, is it in Midtown? Like, are you traveling far? And he said, no, it's not that far. I said, well, you're going to go. He said, what? I said, it's not an issue. If that makes you a better person when you come in, you're going to go. I'll take care of arranging your schedule. And it wasn't that kind of job. It's entertainment. So, it's nonstop. But I made sure that he had that hour that he could go take care of himself and come back. The same thing with now what people haven't taken into effect. And I had this conversation last night with someone and it was my bias. I was pissed. Someone's father has passed of COVID. And they have now jumped in the son to try to run the business. And people are like, so when are you opening? When are you opening? When are you opening? Well, I need you to open. Well, your father would have wanted you to open. I was like, you haven't even had a moment to grieve, let alone deal with all the pressures of family, business that you knew part of it, but didn't know the back end of it that you're trying to figure out now. Lawyers, accountants, bookkeepers. And we're in the middle of a pandemic. And I said, but people don't break that down. And so until we find our voices to be able to say, either take the mental health day, as you said, Sarah, and make it whatever day you need it to be, but have that option at work, or be able to say, I need to take this break, then we're going to stay on this vicious cycle of not getting the help we need, not taking care of ourselves, and as Jen said, not having advocates for us. Working in these boxes, we have to really, as you said, Alex, pay attention to each other. I mean, most of the time, we either, let's be honest, we don't want our cameras on, or we're just like, this could have been an email. This whole meeting could have been an email. This could have been a call. Why are we on here again? And sometimes we have to, the person that speaks a lot, that doesn't speak all of a sudden, the person that didn't speak a lot really has nothing to say. It's just doing that check. Hey, you good? I didn't even say you're okay. Because the answer to that is, I don't know if any of us, as strong as we are okay. No, I'm not okay. I want to go outside, you know? But yeah, I'm good. At the moment, I'm good. Yeah, it is what it is, and I'm pushing through, and I'm grateful that I have that mind space to do that. But not everyone has that mind space to do it, or to do it every single day. We're 9 months in, folks. This is not going away. So I would love if you have tips that you have been able to figure out how to deal with mental health through this process, or before, or how you deal with HR or someone else in your office, or any of those types of things. Because I think sharing is caring. No. Mm-hmm. Anyone? Thoughts?
Well, I think it's important to have a network of people. I think I definitely have a specific support group that I join at least once a week that supports, sort of ongoing mental health, like specifically talking about spirituality, or, and then just generally trying to take care of myself through this and get outside, and, is a big part of staying well. I can speak to that. And then in terms of work, it's really just speaking to people who have more experience than I do in corporate America. And people like you, Leslie, that help me navigate these tricky times.
No, we started, I'm going to call Kim out because she was on that call. We started a Thursday night at the top of the pandemic, cocktail. And just like this webinar, we're like, oh, we'll meet once. Well, that went through up until, I don't know, maybe 2 months ago or something, when everyone started kind of getting busy again. But that Thursday, it was that hour, and it was like, you bring a friend and you bring a friend. And now we're all connected. And now there's this amazing kind of network of women that what everyone did was no makeup, no hair, could care less, whatever, wherever you are in the house, whatever you have on, you jump on the call. What are you drinking? What are you drinking? It could be from water to tea to wine to it didn't matter. And it's funny, one of the women sent out an email today, and she's like, looks like the Rona's about to come get us again. We need to start planning our Thursday night meetups again. But it was nice to have conversation with zero agenda. And I think that's part of it, as well as to have the outside going, as well as the work. Even for myself, when you own your own business, you know what it's like. It's hustle. You hustle nonstop. When you're not hustling, you're thinking about hustling. It's constant. And I made a promise to myself, especially in the time that we're in, doing the work that I was doing, and at the top of George Floyd, and me being on here every day going, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. This is why we matter. This is how this is that. It was taking everything out of me because I was trying to give it all through the screen to have people understand what was happening and what's going on. And I said, as strong as I am, I need to take a step and I need to do my schedule so that I know there may be 2 weeks of back-to-back craziness, but I know where my 3 days are coming. And now, even during the week, there's one day I try to do a week that I stop scheduling at a certain hour. And that way I can actually get work done. But I can also just breathe. Or I can go down the street for my gummy bears and take that walk. Whatever that is. And that helps with work. So
I think that's really important, is that we make sure that we take some time for ourselves. I know it can be hard. I usually try to get up early in the morning and do a ritual, whether it's reading, a meditation. Not everybody's into that, but I think just some time just to be quiet when nobody's up. I mean, I'm by myself, but even in the house, sometimes you just need that time. I also pushed myself to reach out to other people so that I can actually find out how they're doing. 'Cause a lot of time we also are caught up in our own stuff that we forget about other people. And sometimes you're like, oh my God, I just thought about so and so. Let me just call them and find out. And then you'll see that, oh my goodness, somebody else like, oh, I just was thinking about you. I needed that call. Yeah, I think, oh my God, the kids are driving me crazy. Like they needed a moment just of sanity to speak to another adult outside the house. Just something like that. Or a joke. I'm telling you guys, I went on YouTube the other day and I just like let it rip for like a half an hour of just like Netflix's joke with the different comedians.
Mhm.
Just the half an hour of just doing that, it made such a big difference. I mean, simple things of taking a nice hot shower. We have to still prioritize ourselves. And what I do understand with the companies is that they're really not social and they're sometimes not going to get it. But we definitely have to make ourselves a priority.
And we have to speak up about the mental health that we need at work. Anyone else wanted to add anything?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Sorry, I'm like in the middle of bath time here, but I definitely was paying attention. Just a comment, or I guess to lift up what was just said. I definitely can relate to that. As you can hear in the background, my little kiddos. And I don't know if you mentioned it already, sorry, but I find it very, I'm the DEI coordinator at my school, and so I'm in a position that I have a close relationship with the head of school. However, my role is not an administrator, so I don't have like the power to really make changes, so to speak. But I do have people coming to me, or me and myself have been, experiencing like just being overworked and not really knowing how to like say that, because I think you had said it earlier. It is sort of this position of like, well, even though the venue has changed or where you're at has changed, the expectation that you are still going to just function in the same way is there. And, even when I'm working at home, I think the assumption is that, oh, you're in your comfort zone. But it's actually harder because my kids are here. I'm managing home, house, and work. So that's like doing 3 jobs at once. And I just find it hard to like kind of express that to the administration, that not only I'm feeling it, other people are feeling that, as well. And it's really tough. So for me, like, I don't even have the phone call time. Like, I just have like maybe maybe sometimes like a Netflix show or something like that, but or kiki on a text message, but that's about it.
If at work, if you can, which I understand is hard when you're not in a position to make change, but I think sometimes to suggest, you know what, can we all come to an agreement and I think someone else would be so happy you said it, of what time we'll start emailing each other or what time we finish emailing each other. And that it's okay, like I'm going to do bath time at this time. What time do you do bath time? You know, kind of almost make it like that. Or isn't that your cocktail time? Okay, so we're not going to mess with that either. So, and almost do it as a group activity. And then the next thing you know, people will be like, oh, that's right. Well, you know what? We shouldn't do this either. And it will snowball into it not being a policy, because it's like one of my clients was like, oh, listen, you don't want to write that down. And I was like, you have a commitment issue. They're like, no, because then we'll have to keep it forever. But how do we make sure people know it is happening and it's okay for it to happen? And so we planted someone to start that. Let's do an agreement amongst ourselves. And everyone agreed. So maybe that's the way that you get to do it. Like, okay, even if there's an email there, you know, I'm going to respond at 9:30 in the morning or 10 o'clock in the morning. You know, I'm not going to respond after this time. That also gives you just that breathing time. Now you have the kids, so there's only so much breathing time you're going to get, but at least you know you can have that breakfast time without trying to answer an email right away.
Right.
That pressure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Call me and have me call the school. I mean, like, listen, we need our people to be good.
You'll be calling for me because we work together.
Oh. So you just heard what needs to happen.
Yes.
You're now her backup.
I am. We are each other's backup.
Good. So get that, because that, you know what? People don't want to step up because they feel like they don't have backup. But the moment they know somebody else was like, I was just waiting for somebody else to jump in, then it changes. So good. I would like an update. I like to make sure that happens. You know? And yeah, it's because that's what I said. HR may not always be your backup, but who within the company is your backup? There's usually someone. And it doesn't have to be like you're renegade, we're trying to make changes. No, we're renegade trying to actually show up every day. How about that? You know? So I've even worked on cultural holidays, because when you look at most calendars of work, they have the basic holidays. I said, but you're now telling someone else that they can't take the holiday or cultural time that they celebrate. Where's the floating holidays? And so maybe there's 3. And so if I'm doing Kinderklaus, I get to take Kinderklaus because that's what's important to me. All right, and so these are the kind of conversations that I believe that are part of diversity and inclusion and equity that has to happen within a company. It's not all about race and gender. We're fighting for race, gender, disabilities, sight seen and unseen, LGBT. Can't speak tonight. LGBT plus, and anything and everything that is equitable, which means access to understanding and learning and time within a company. And so that builds company culture, and it builds employees that become invested in, oh, you see me, you heard me, you know? And it's funny, I'm fighting for, believe it or not, December 23rd with the company. And I'm just like, I understand that the majority of your company may not celebrate Christmas, but there is a nice chunk that does celebrate Christmas. Why can't they have that 23rd? Now, I know people aren't traveling, but as a travel day, or why can't that be a floating day? And we finally got it as a floating day, you know, because I'm like, that's mental. Like, I know I'm leaving at that time. I need to get to this date, you know, and that I believe I know when I'm going a long period of time and I know there's a light at the end of that tunnel, even if it's 2 weeks, I know that's the day I get the break. I can make it all the way through those 2 weeks. I know I'm getting a break and I'm treating myself to whatever treat I decided I deserve at the end of that project. And that changes your mindset. So it's necessary to, one, take care of ourselves, right? Two, be able to speak up within an organization, whether it's as a kind of unwritten written. This is how we're all going to back each other, and this is how we're going to all work together, and that's how we're all going to roll. But better yet, be able to change policy and procedures when it comes to mental health, which is different than wellness. But to have both of them respected within a company, and that the only way I believe that happens if it is written as part of policy, and that it is acknowledged that you have so many days that you can take without, worrying about being reprimanded and retribution and all those other things. And that you have an alternative outside of your manager and HR to also speak to if you feel like you're getting blocked by taking your days, or you come back and you feel that your manager is some kind of way. That becomes on the manager and not on you at that point. And so, and that's really kind of the work that I've been trying to do. And that's why I really want to have this conversation, because I wanted to hear from others as I'm over here fighting. What else should I be adding into this? I mean, I'm speaking to as many people as I can, but what else do you need, or what else do you want as part of these policies when it comes to mental health and wellness? Because it's not a junior thing or a senior thing. It's a people thing. So our time is almost the end. It goes so quickly. Is there anything else from anyone? I'd love to hear. No? Then we all on this webinar have made a deal to take care of ourselves and to be the backup. If you know someone on this webinar, to be the backup. And if you don't know someone on this webinar, to find out who your backup is. Because that's the most important thing we can all do for each other. Because then when we get to work, we can do a whole nother band of folks.
Yes. And I just wanted to shout out Oscar, who is my adopted son, almost 20 years now. So we go back a long
It's actually
way.
30.
It is 30, right?
Yeah.
See, that's because he has a younger mind than I do.
Thank you for joining and contributing, everyone. I always love these conversations, and I appreciate that you take the time. I appreciate you took the time in the midst of bath time. Thank you very much. As always, it is great to see everyone. And we have one more webinar in 2 weeks before the end of the year. So I look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 I hope you enjoyed this episode, and you'll join us again soon at Visibility Unlimited. Thank you.